Good morning, Mrs. Prendergast. I see you brought some folks with you. You might want to introduce them, and afterwards you could begin your opening remarks.
I did. Thank you very much. My husband, Shan, is here, as he has been next to me for the last 30 years, and was next to me during spring break when we put 1,200 miles on our car visiting most of you. Our son, Luke, is on the far end. He, too, got to enjoy spring break visiting all of Iowa. And it was important for me today that he see this process. It's important that he see his mother participate in this. So he got to take a day off of school today, and I think he's kind of happy about that. My good friend Dawn, who has been a supporter and close friend for 10 years now, also came along for the ride today. And finally, last but not least, my two legal assistants, who are my work family, and they are integral to who I am and how I get to be in front of you all today, because without their work and help, I wouldn't have the practice that I have built, and that's why they're all here, so thank you very much.
Well, we welcome you all, and you may begin your opening remarks.
Thank you. First, thank you very much for your time on this service and your time that you gave to me during this process. It is rigorous, and it should be. And I thoroughly enjoyed meeting all of you. I can't deny that at the start of this process, there is a certain amount of nervousness. There is what is this going to be like, an unknown. And then as the process unfolded and I met with all of you, I realized the value in it. I realized the importance of it, and I enjoyed all of it. I wouldn't trade it. And thank you again for your time and service on this commission. It's very clear that you all take this very seriously, as you should. And I'm appreciative of that fact. As a participant in our judicial system here, I am very pleased with what I saw from the level of commitment and what this process is. So thank you very much. I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about how I ended up here today and my background. My background is about as diverse as my practice is these days. I was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And my parents moved us to Illinois when I was 3 years old. My father was a civilian accountant in the Air Force, and Rantoul Air Force Base offered him an opportunity when I was 3, and we moved there. I grew up in Urbana, Illinois, therefore I am a Midwesterner. My husband also grew up in Urbana, however, his extended family is from Fort Dodge, and I will admit that Iowa was probably always the goal. That ended up being the case in 2000, but prior to that, John Deere did provide us the opportunity to move around a little bit in the Midwest. When I attended the University of Illinois, I gained an appreciation for law school. I'd gone to a pre-law club meeting and kind of fell in love with the concept of being able to help people as well as utilize my research and writing skills. I had transitioned to an English major. I enjoyed reading and writing, and pre-law seemed like the direction I wanted to head, so that's exactly what I did. I ultimately became vice president of the pre-law club at Illinois and president of the pre-law club at Illinois. When I graduated from college, I wanted to leave the Midwest and see another part of the country, and Massachusetts provided me an opportunity to be near extended family, but also see a different part of the world. And I'm happy with that choice. I loved law school. I wouldn't trade that either. I had 3 years of a wonderful experience with a great education. I enjoyed diving into reading and writing, and I enjoyed that process. When I graduated, my husband and I were engaged, and again, at that time, we moved back to Illinois because John Deere had an opportunity for him there, and I began studying for the bar exam and passed the Illinois bar exam. Shortly after that, John Deere provided another opportunity for a move to Missouri. So I took another bar exam and passed another bar exam. And while I was down there, decided to take a Kansas bar exam and pass another bar exam. At the time, might I have groused a little bit about it? I probably did. But I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I put my head down and I took 3 bar exams in 3 years and passed them all and learned another diverse area of the law by practicing in insurance defense down in Joplin. We enjoyed Joplin. And then the John Deere call happened again to move to Waterloo. and we had an opportunity to reach that goal, to be in Iowa, to be closer to the family farm in Iowa, and we jumped on it. Iowa thankfully gave me a license based upon reciprocity. I had been practicing for 5 years by then and did not have to take another bar exam. I dived back into prosecution at that time. As you know from my application, I started in Illinois as a prosecutor, loved the courtroom, had incredible mentoring there, and really found my passion for being in a courtroom and enjoying the process that is there. The insurance defense work in Joplin was a different area of the law. I found myself with a jury trial there in Joplin and enjoyed that as well. And again, had a wonderful group of mentors who allowed me to soar and try different things. Then, when we got back to Iowa, I didn't really have the prosecution bug out of my system yet and went back to prosecuting. And I also wanted to learn the courtroom in Black Hawk County. I knew we would be staying there, and I wanted to meet the lawyers and be part of the judicial system, and I knew that prosecuting was one of the fastest ways to kind of be thrown into the fray, so to speak. Then in 2004, it was time to enter into private practice, and I did so, and since then, the diversity of my experience has kind of exploded. My partners recognized that I had a skill set in the courtroom, and they mentored that. And as I sit here today, I can honestly tell you that I practice in virtually, well, it's about 68%, I guess, of what the Court of Appeals heard in 2017. I have done over 600 criminal defendants since 2005, represented over 600 criminal defendants since 2005, and I currently represent 11 cities in and around Northeast Iowa. Commissioner Law asked me in my interview if I had transactional experience, and after I thought of that question after leaving the interview, I realized that my municipal practice actually is largely transactional. I hadn't even thought about it until she asked me that question, and I realized that I still continue to do title opinions. I still continue to do a great deal of contract interpretation, as all of my small cities enter into 2080 agreements and contracts with many providers, and I have to review that and provide them with an opinion of the same. I also have done 2 sets of flood buyouts, both in 2008 as well as in 2016 for Clarksville and Greene, all of which was transactional in nature and providing title opinions and work in that regard. So it wasn't until she asked me the question that I realized I actually do have a decent amount of transactional experience that I hadn't even contemplated. Obviously, I have a extensive practice in family law, which includes dissolution, custody, modification, terminations, juvenile delinquencies, child support hearing, and contempt hearings, to name just a few. I would say that work right now takes up probably about 50% of my practice. I do have a people practice. I have represented people since I started my private practice and built it since 2004. People are at the core of this system, and I will admit that I love my clients. I work very hard for them, and I hope they recognize that. I think they do. I think you can see from the letters of recommendation that I know you've been sent anyway, that I think they recognize that I care for them, and I will tell you that that has been my goal since the beginning. When I walked out of law school, my main goal was to make sure that my clients appreciated the work that I did for them, and then 2, that the judiciary and the colleagues that I worked with respected me and knew I had put in the work and time to do my job as best as I could. So I know that you want time for questions, and I want to give you that opportunity. I will give you one parting thought that occurred to me yesterday as I was preparing for today. When I'm in Des Moines, I have a tradition of taking a run to the Capitol. I like running. I'm an avid runner, and it clears my head. Yesterday, I took a run up this hill to this beautiful building and this beautiful Capitol. And as I was running up the hill, I was thinking of all of the Iowans that are part of this judicial system and our justice system. And it came to me at that moment that it must seem like an uphill battle to them to be part of this justice system. I see people in crisis. I see people that need their problems solved. And when they start on that path, they're scared. They don't know how the system works. They don't understand the procedure, and I'm their only guide. They rely on me every day. And I realized as I was running up that hill that that's what I've been doing for the last 24 years. I've been running next to people up a hill into the courthouse. And it's been a marathon, and I'm proud of the marathon that it's been. And it's with that that I will let you all ask whatever questions that you would like to ask, and I welcome them.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Justice Wiggins. Thank you for your application.
Thank you.
I'll ask you the district court question. Have you ever applied to be a judge on the Iowa District Court and use those skill sets that you just told us about to help people in Black Hawk County?
I have not, and I'm anticipating that a question you might then say after that is, why not? And I have not, and I don't think I intend to be quite frank, for a number of reasons. One, there hasn't been an opportunity in the district that I live in the recent past, nor do I think there is going to be in the future. Two, the district court position is very different than this position. I'm interested in this position because of the unique way it allows me to take 24 years of my experience and provide that perspective and that work to reviewing and breathing life into a transcript and a district court decision, and then applying the law to those facts and that life based upon the perspective and experience that I have. A district court position would certainly allow me to do the same, but in a much different way, and I've been there. I've been in that position. I've been in those courtrooms. I've traveled, and I cover currently virtually all of Northeast Iowa. I've appeared in counties in all of District 1, most of 2A, and most of 6. And I'm just not as interested in the district court position as I am in this one.
Thank you.
Mr. Horbach.
No questions.
Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you. In one of your significant legal matters, you referred to being guardian ad litem for a juvenile girl. And then you refer to her as successful in a way that sort of implies that's rare. Could you give us a little insight about why she was successful or is successful, and how that might translate into the talent that you bring to the Court of Appeals?
For her in particular, she had a team that worked very well for her from all aspects of her case. And that team I'm referring to would be her social worker that was assigned to her case, who she had a great relationship with. The judge who was assigned to her case is a longtime juvenile judge who appreciates what's needed in the courtroom and has an excellent rapport with the individuals that he sees in a common way. I'd like to think it was because she had me too. I connected with her, she connected with me. She was not shy about calling me and asking me questions. As a 15 or 16-year-old, she would call me and say, what do you think about this potential foster placement? And unfortunately, she did have 2 or 3 moves that she took. And she, I think, saw in me, at least I hope, somewhere where she wanted to be. It might not necessarily have been a lawyer, but it was in a better place in her world than where she had been in her unfortunate abusive situation. How I can directly relate that in the Court of Appeals is that I'm familiar with what those juvenile cases look like. I know the unfortunate circumstances that bring them to the court's attention, and I know, unfortunately, the sadness that is behind those words on paper. And I know what that process should look like in terms of reunification, if it's possible, from both a juvenile perspective as well as a delinquency perspective, which in a delinquency perspective, reunification isn't the issue, but you have young men and women who are struggling in lots of different ways. So it's a constant vigilance of making sure that those team members are always aligned correctly for those juveniles that are part of that system.
Ms. Roberts? Ms. Conover?
Maybe this is an unfair question, but we've had a couple of Supreme Court openings, and now we have a couple of Court of Appeals openings, but you didn't apply for the Supreme Court openings. Tell me why.
I'm thrilled you asked that question. I was not interested in the Supreme Court position. That is a much different job than what the Court of Appeals is. The Supreme Court position is considerably more administrative and procedural in nature. And quite frankly, you had many candidates who were very well qualified from that perspective, as they already had significant administrative and procedural background to allow them to do the job in an excellent fashion. The Court of Appeals is my wheelhouse. The Court of Appeals is the world I know. The Court of Appeals is my expertise. The Court of Appeals is where I feel most qualified and most comfortable. This is the job I'm interested in. I was not interested in the Supreme Court position. I also think, if I could indulge just a little bit, it's important for the Court of Appeals to have a diverse background for the strength of that bench. I know it could be asked, or it might be asked, is it important to have district judges as appellate judges? Certainly that's a factor for you all to consider, and certainly they provide a perspective. Private practitioners provide a very important perspective. They have a perspective of sitting next to the individuals that are part of this system, and I'd like to think I have 24 years that I can bring to that. So that might be a long-winded answer to your question, but I was excited at this opportunity. I knew this fit within my character and my abilities, and wanted to give it an opportunity.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes, thank you. We had an enjoyable conversation. We shared that the John Deere call also moved my family 4 times, and my wife had to restart her career. So there's a lot of, we can relate to that experience. The one thing that caught my eye, perhaps because when we left Waterloo after 16 years, we returned a year later for my oldest daughter's wedding, and we held her reception at Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. So you had a letter of recommendation from Aaron Buzza that was very complimentary about your time on the board of the Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau and 2 years as president. And I would like you to talk a little bit about your approach as board president, the approach you took with the board, and how that experience might relate to your work with the Court of Appeals.
Sure, thank you very much. My time on the Convention Visitors Bureau was very well spent. My approach as I served as vice president and president was to lead that organization in a way that moved us forward towards improving Waterloo's appearance and attractiveness to individuals. I don't think it's a secret that sometimes Waterloo gets a bad rap. Quite frankly, it's a wonderful, vibrant community with an incredible amount of growth, and it was important to me to lead that organization in a way that allowed them to see that Waterloo could be that, to see that vision. I think that's directly applicable to how you serve on the Court of Appeals, and that I was collaborating with a large board. I was providing vision, I was providing discussion, allowing them the opportunity to give feedback during our board meetings, and fostering a full and fair discussion. The Court of Appeals does the exact same thing in panels of 3. Those individuals sit down and they review the record and the transcript, and they come to an opinion. They may not always agree, but the way to do it is in a collaborative way and in a full discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
I have no questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Diekma?
Ms. Prendergast, you're one of the few candidates who has fairly extensive background in both prosecution and criminal defense. Could you just explain how one kind of goes from one to the other, and how that maybe has helped you as a lawyer?
Sure. Prosecution was enjoyable, and I enjoyed the indoctrination into the courtroom, and it obviously provided me understanding of the criminal law with great depth. Then, when I entered private practice, my law partners were wonderful mentors, and both of them encouraged me to use the knowledge that I already had of the criminal system and open up my practice to criminal defense. Certainly as a young lawyer, if you've been a prosecutor, your first inclination might be, I don't know that I want to do that. They didn't take that for an answer, and they said, no, this is what you're going to do. And that was just fine. And I'm thrilled that they did that, because I learned from a whole different perspective what it's like to sit next to someone who is facing a prison sentence, meeting that person's extended family, meeting the children that are impacted by whatever bad decision-making may have occurred. And it provides a shift in your thinking and an ability to see 2 sides, and that's important for all of us that are participating in this system. So I've been thrilled that I've been able to do that, and it's given me a different depth of experience that I would not have had I not entered private practice. As an aside, I did court-appointed work for a number of years. I am not on the court-appointed list anymore. Most of my criminal defense work is now private in nature, having built a practice and I hope a reputation that I can do the same.
Thank you.
Ms. Sinclair? Mr. Sukop?
Good morning. You
morning.
mentioned appeals court was your wheelhouse. Can you just explain that a little bit more, whether it's the Dietz case or?
Sure. The Court of Appeals, as you all are acutely aware, the majority of the cases that they hear, based upon the pie chart that they have on the website right now, is approximately 68%, and that is made up of criminal work, family law, and post-conviction relief, and also dissolution, modification, custody, et cetera. Those are the areas that I practice in. And those are the areas that I know, and that's why I consider it my wheelhouse. I feel uniquely prepared in this situation, and I believe I'm one of the individuals that are most uniquely prepared in that regard, and that the majority of what the Court of Appeals is ruling on are areas that I am intimately familiar with. They do not require a learning curve for me. They do not require a great deal of me determining what I need to go find out the answer to, as they are the areas that I already know. You referenced the Dietz case, and I listed that on this application because that particular case means the most to me. Mr. Dietz was a hardworking dairy farmer, and it was emotional, and it was long, and it was draining, but the ultimate result was that my client has primary care of his son, and I believe that made an impact on that young man, and I believe that made an impact on his family for his long-term good. As a result, I know modification law. I know family law like the back of my hand. That's why it's my wheelhouse.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're out of time. I'm sorry over there. We wish you the best of luck, and thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.